everybody. You are getting Lost in Plot, the show where we focus on story first, but not exclusively, across the mediums of film, television, video games, really anything with a story. I'm Wade, that's my brother Jake, and today we have for you Marvel's Black Widow. So let's go get lost in the plot. There's going to be some spoilers ahead. You've been warned. Here we go. Black Widow confronts the darker parts of her ledger when a deadly conspiracy with ties to her past arises. Pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down, Natasha must deal with her history as a spy and the broken relationships left in her wake, long before she became an Avenger. Now, I think it's fair to say that this film may be a little confused because it's kind of an origin story, yet it's not an origin story, right? It's not an origin story, that's for sure. It's basically just a chapter in the life of Black Widow. We're going to take a page from her past and just tell you the story, presumably because it's going to have some deeper meaning for the character either later on or just in her life as a whole.
Fair enough. Now, in the timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is happening right after the Civil War film. So it's basically Black Widow went off on her own private adventure from everybody else.
Right, all Avengers scattered to the wind or otherwise imprisoned, and then she's having this.
And it kind of reflects on her origin with the Red Room and how she became an assassin, while also maintaining the current timeline. So it's like that chapter of her life was presumably closed, but now it's been reopened so we can have a story here that fits in with everything else. And by that, it's confusing to me.
Well, probably should have been filmed and shot and released at that
Probably
time.
should have just been an origin story. What's wrong with that?
You could have done an origin story too, or you could have just actually shot it and released it like right after Civil War, and then you could have had more Avengers tie-ins to set up the subsequent films in the canon. That probably would have been better than this. As it stands, this one's kind of shoved off in the corner to play by itself.
There's so much exposition here because it's looking back at a thing that happened. It's telling you everything that happened in the past, and then the hook is, yeah, it's actually still happening. It's not done. So now you've got to deal with it again. So that's the approach. Let's talk about who wrote this.
That's right. Now, say my name.
Well, we're talking about who wrote it, and we've got an MCU writer, Eric Pearson. Eric Pearson wrote this. So let's take a look at some of his earlier credits. It seems like he got started working on the Marvel TV series Agent Carter.
Agent Carter, I never
ABC
saw it.
show. I never saw it either. But then he also wrote Thor Ragnarok.
He wrote Thor Ragnarok, which was...
But he was one of 3 writers on that.
All right, well, he still gets a writing credit for that, because Thor Ragnarok, I really am fond of that movie. That might be my favorite Marvel
But did you
movie
see much of the same kind of writing for Thor Ragnarok in Black Widow?
No, I didn't. I didn't see any of that. Well, maybe flashes here and there, but largely, no. It was missing that kind of flair.
Okay, so he was
from
one
Thor
of 3
Ragnarok.
writers for Thor Ragnarok. Then he went on to have a writing hand in Godzilla vs. King Kong. Did you watch that one?
I didn't realize they needed writers for that movie.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. People got to say something.
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway, Godzilla vs. Kong, and then finally, sole credit here on Black Widow.
Sole credit.
Sole credit. Are you surprised that they didn't bring in a woman to write?
Mildly, yes. But congratulations to this writer with the sole credit. Kudos.
Okay. So that's what we've got for who wrote this. Let's pass it back over to you. Go ahead and break this story.
I'm ready. So my one thing for Marvel's Black Widow is the Red Guardian. Guys, we have to talk about the Red Guardian, because for me, he's easily the best part of this movie. Now, the character is played by actor David Harbour, whether or not that's how you pronounce it. And he's never been better. This is by far his best role, in my opinion. He is sensational as the former Soviet superhero who longs to recapture the glories of days past. And he also happens to be the father figure in a family of cold female assassins. He is everything that the women are not. He is charming, charismatic, earnest, and sincere in his beliefs, which is why he plays so well off of all the other family members. His humor and his larger-than-life persona is the key to unlocking their cold exterior and giving us much-needed glimpses at their humanity. And as soon as he enters the picture, the movie takes off. He is the emotional core, which is a problem when you sandbag him in the third act. Oh, do they sandbag him in the third act. Every other side character gets their moment, except Red Guardian. He gets his ass kicked by the main bad guy. He tries to reconcile his broken relationship with Natasha, and they play it off with a cheap joke because he doesn't have an earpiece so nobody can hear what he's saying. Then, when he actually meets her face to face and has the chance to talk with her, the film gives him the lamest line in the entire movie when he simply says, "I got nothing to say. I just screw it up anyways." What are you doing? You sandbag the Red Guardian, and you don't realize this, but you sandbag Black Widow at the same time because you are denying her the emotional journey that her character deserves. And as a result, this film feels inconsequential.
Inconsequential, I think that's a perfect word for this film. I kind of look at it as embarrassing. I don't think anyone came out of this film looking better. Certainly not Scarlett Johansson, certainly not the Black Widow character, which I thought deserved a lot better. I don't know much about the character in the comics or anything like that, but I know about in the Avengers continuity that her origin story, I think, should have been a little bit darker, should have been a bit more gripping. This one, as I was watching it, it's like I could almost see the Marvel film template showing through the seams. Like, it was just so by the numbers for any Marvel movie. It was lacking any real substance or emotion. I had no connection to any of it, and the plot is just barely strung together by a series of let's go do this, let's go do that.
It's interesting. It's interesting because I'm going to push back a little bit because I thought this movie had a bit more to offer on it. Now, the best scene in this movie is when Black Widow's younger sister needs to be consoled. All right, she's upset that the 3 years they spent together as family is basically a Soviet fiction, right? And the Red Guardian goes to console her, but he's clumsy and oafish. So instead, he tells this hysterical story about ice fishing with his father and his father having to go to toilet on his hands. It had me laughing out loud. It was a riot. But it's followed up by the most emotionally poignant moment in the entire movie when he sings her favorite pop song, the song that they were all listening to together on their last day as a family. This is a moving moment, and it was really touching. And that's why the Red Guardian works, is because he gets the other assassins who are cold, they're detached, they're all playing the same tortured assassin archetype. They're so conflicted they couldn't pick out a breakfast cereal without feeling guilty about it. And he let them let their defenses down because of his comedic effect and his earnestness. And it really unlocks those characters. So why you wouldn't want to have a poignant moment like that with your protagonist, Black Widow, to further shade her and add some much-needed humanity is beyond me.
You just like the Red Guardian. That's all we're talking.
He was fantastic. You
Give
can't
him the
tell me.
movie. You just
He
like the Red
stole
Guardian.
the movie.
I don't even think you like this. I think you just like the Red Guardian character and some David Harbour's performance, and the rest of this is just nonsense.
No, because he works well in this dynamic.
He's inconsequential.
He plays off the other characters. They make him inconsequential. He didn't have to be. If he had a poignant emotional moment...
Well, you deal with what it is, not what you would want it to be.
Well, but listen, we're talking about family, right?
Yeah.
Black Widow's alone. She's given up on the adventures. She doesn't have a family. She rediscovers her need and her want for family. We don't get that. They didn't complete that arc because they don't give her a moment.
Think that's what they were
like her
getting at?
younger sister. Yeah, because at the end, what does she do? She says, "Oh, it turns out I've got family here. I've got another family there. I'm going to go back and help my family out." Bullshit. You didn't sell that arc because you didn't give her a moment. Had they given her a moment where it's just like, you know what, Dad, I'm mad at you. You're a flawed human being, but I still, you're as much of a father as I ever had. I want to have this moment for you. That would have at least shaded the character, added some humanity to her, and then you could understand why family mattered to her. I think you'd end up liking her better in the subsequent movies, too, if they just completed that arc, but they didn't do it. They didn't do it.
I didn't get any of that. I couldn't tell you what this film was about. I thought hard about it. You think it's about reconnecting with family?
Oh, absolutely. And, Rachel Weisz is excellent in this movie, too, so I don't want to throw shade on her. She does a marvelous job. But they don't give her the moments that they need, right? Where they don't get the moments where these people have to reconcile that the 3 years they had together is real and it mattered for them, right? It matters for them because they look back on it fondly, and that's what family is. And you need family to get by in these hard times. And for Natasha, the Black Widow, she has this family that she has to reconcile her past memories and come to terms with the fact that it did mean something to her, and then take that as an impetus to go back with the Avengers, who are more pseudo-family. Rescue everybody and then go on the rest of their Avengers adventures.
Fair enough. Well, the story is thoroughly broken. Now let's find out if it's dead or alive.
All right, we're back with Dead or Alive. Go ahead. I talked enough. You get started on this.
This will be interesting because I feel like we're moving in very different directions.
Could be. It could be.
I'll just come right out with it. Black Widow, the latest entry of the MCU, is dead for me.
Oh!
It's dead at a 3 out of 10.
Oh!
I thought this was an embarrassment
He scorched
of
it.
a film. I don't think anyone came out of this looking better. I didn't enjoy any of it. I had the recurring feeling through the whole thing that, it's time for the MCU to be put to bed. Like this, it's overstayed its welcome, and there's nothing left here to explore.
Do you like the Black Widow character?
I'm neutral in the Black Widow character. I wanted to like her. I was looking for this to be an intriguing story. I mean, it's kind of a dark material when you've got an assassin that had all of her female organs ripped out and sterilized. But they play that for jokes, for shits and giggles here. So it's like a weird tone for me. The plot was all over the place and simplified. I mean, we start looking for one thing, and then it's something totally else when, hey, that red room is still out there, only it's floating up in the sky.
Yeah,
Who
that's
would have
where it
thought?
was.
And I like Ray Winstone. He is the actor who played, I don't know his name.
Dreykov. You like his Russian accent?
Dreykov. This was easily his worst performance I've ever seen him give.
I'm sorry, Ray.
Like, it was embarrassingly bad. He's just the Mr. Evil Marvel villain. He's not compelling at all. I got a few laughs at the David Harbour Red Guardian character, but he's totally inconsequential to anything, as is the Rachel Weisz character. I didn't get much there. I didn't like the kind of standard relationship she had with her sister, played by Florence Pugh. Do you know what she was in? I was looking at her, I'm just like, where do I know her from? I know her from something. What is it?
Can you say her last name again?
Pugh? She was in Midsummer.
Oh, she was!
She was the lead in Midsummer.
Oh my God, she survived that movie and she went on to this. She was the Mayflower Queen or whatever at the end of that movie.
I mean, they introduced her and they have that sisterly fight, that brawl scene in the apartment, and it's just like, when is this going to be done so we can get on to something interesting?
Yeah, I wasn't involved in that.
And then on a whim, they're trying to find the new red room. It's first set up as something that would be impossible. You could never find this red room. It's been there over 20 years or something more. And then she knows exactly, I know who's going to know. My daddy's in prison for something. We'll just go get him out and he'll know right away. And he does know right away. He points her to the mom who knows. They bring the family back together, which is to your point. I really don't see how that's like the missing puzzle piece for the Black Widow character, Natasha Romanoff, because
let me
she
explain
has
it
that
to you.
family in the Avengers.
Oh, come on.
She says it countless times.
I know she says it, but that's not a real family. That's a bunch of friends.
Well, neither
All right,
is this family.
So let me tell you.
Neither is this
I'm
family.
going to tell you what's wrong, okay? I'm going to tell you what's wrong. First, I am going to say that this movie for me is also dead. It's dead. It's
What's going on?
Well, I'm going to explain.
I feel like I'm on the other side here.
Stop. It's dead, and it's a 5 out of 10, okay? Because you didn't finish the movie that you were telling. I got the movie that you were telling, okay? But there's a problem. There's a lack of an emotional journey that makes this an important entry for Black Widow to shade her character and
Yes.
make her different, okay? And there's a reason why. You may notice this. This film has an unconventional structure because we're kind of snuck into the third act. There's no low point where everybody's like, man, we're all flawed, we all have this baggage, and there's no, like, moment where they reconcile that. Okay? It's basically just, oh, we think mom's betrayed us, but oh no, really? She didn't. It was just our secret spy plan to get up to the Red Room. And then all of a sudden it's like, I had to check the time. I'm like, wait a minute, are we in the third act? Like, that was abrupt, right? But you get to the third act, and rather than reconciling the damaged family relationships, look, everybody has a relationship with their father, right? They crave paternal love, but at the same time they resent them for their human flaws. If you can't do an arc out of that, you got no business doing that movie, because that's what it screamed for, and you could have done the same thing with the mother as well. But in the third act, instead, the big thing is, I'll save all these other women from the Red Room. Now, I'm glad you saved them. I'm glad you saved all the assassins and you got rid of the mind control, but I don't know any of them. And I don't give a shit because I haven't seen them the entire movie. You didn't tell that story. The story you told was about this broken family learning to pick up the pieces all this time
try
later.
to build sympathy with the one woman that dies in the beginning. She's forced to kill herself.
Oh.
And she says she doesn't want, I'm not trying to do this, and then she blows her off her own face and it melts. That was Ray, what's his name? Dragoff. Jagoff.
Dreykov.
Dragoff. Close enough.
Ray Winstone. Okay.
Not good, Ray.
But I mean, look, had they gone for that emotional gravitas that they could have easily gotten, and look, these people are expert storytellers. They know what they're doing. This was an intentional choice, and that's
Do
why.
you think they changed it up? Do you think they changed? Because Scarlett Johansson told me that this is about...
She told you.
She did, in interviews.
Okay.
She said this is about the enslavement and entrapment of women.
Maybe they did change it up, but that's not the story you set up. It's not. It's not the story you set up. Look, I'm glad you freed all these people, but you didn't give us a single character who's in those clutches, really. Any of those people in the final act who gets freed. We weren't following them. They're just kind of nameless faces to us, all right? And we wanted more reconciliation with the family. At least I did, because
Did you have fun
seemed
watching
like
this?
it was a story you're telling. I had fun with the Red Guardian. I don't know how you can't. He's tatted up. He has
Because
Karl
he's-
Marx tattooed on his fingers. And David Haber is fantastic.
Because he's just a big joke. Like, that's all he is. It's like, here comes the comic relief sidekick character. He's only there for some humor. And he's totally inconsequential. It's just like, why are we back to him now?
Well, he
like, I don't
is,
get it.
but that's my point as to why it's dead and not alive, is because they made that choice, which was an error, to make him so inconsequential, rather than show the profound impact he could have had on these other people in this familial dynamic.
There were a lot of errors in this. A lot.
Well, what are they? What?
I've been talking about them
Well,
the
look,
whole
I don't know
time.
why
You've just been talking about the Red Guardian
That's
and
right.
what you wish.
The Red Guard. Look, I don't know why we're disagreeing. We both say it's dead. All right. You
Right.
should have done a better job with this movie. It's inconsequential, and you didn't give us a good enough emotional journey to really shade Black Widow in any meaningful way to change the way we think about her. Right. So, in that respect, it's a fail.
It's a fail. So there you go. Despite our back and forth here, we both find it dead is Black Widow. Sorry, I know there's a ton of Marvel fanboys out there that would cut your head off just for
I'm
saying
sorry to David Harbour. I've been
something so
fighting for you
dastardly.
quite a bit. Quite a bit. Anyways, guys, what do you think about our review? What do you think about this particular movie? Did you find it to be fulfilling? Did you think it was a stalwart
Where do you
entry?
put it on the rankings of the Marvel films?
Oh, it's by far one of the lesser films. By far one of the lesser films.
Thanks.
It didn't have to be, but
See?
that's what they made.
And that's where we end.
So that's where we end up. Anyways, let us know what you think in the comments down below. Guys, if you liked this video, please leave us a thumbs. If you loved it, go ahead and subscribe, because we will see you all on the next one.